Well, good morning. Thank you guys for being here. My name is Guy Hutchinson. I write books. I do a channel called Pointless Nostalgia on YouTube. Put a new video up every day at 2 o'clock. So if you subscribe, you can see my video from yesterday, what I did the whole day here at the convention yesterday. Will be going up at 2 o'clock today. And what we're going to be talking about here is Saturday morning cartoons. I am of an age where I remember when that was the greatest day of the week for every kid. Like you would, because we had cartoons on the, like after school, but there were only a couple. It was like you'd get G.I. Joe, you'd get He-Man, you get a couple things after school, but Saturday it was like you had the whole day. Today any kid can turn on like Cartoon Network or, you know, any channel and get nothing but cartoons. You know, even like PBS, starting around the 90s, started putting stuff that questionable education content. When I was a kid, we got Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, and then it was Bob Ross the painter, and Jan Can Cook. It was like every other show on there. If you watched it, it was educational first and not entertainment value as much. But Saturday morning, you'd sit in front of the TV. So I'm going to start at the beginning of the science fiction Saturday morning cartoons. So I'm covering just ones that have some kind of scientific or sci-fi element to them. Some of them, it's a bit of a stretch. But we're going to start out in the era where the TV looked like a big old piece of furniture that was carved out of wood by a master craftsman. When, like today, the TV, they're like, we're going to make it as thin as possible. We're going to put the board is just going to be solid black. It's just going to almost disappear into the wall. And back then they were like, we must carve the speakers. We must, and like those speakers, those would break. Like those are like little cross wood across it. And then it would have like the cheesecloth, like fabric there over the speaker, and at some point you'd poke it with something, and it'd get a hole in it. And we didn't have a remote control. You had to walk over and press or turn the knob.
Use your legs.
Had to use your legs, which meant that a lot of times you would not only would you sit through commercials, you'd sit through a show you didn't like because you'd be like, well, I got to go all the way over there, and I know in a half hour Happy Days is on. I like that one. So
yeah, like I can't walk 5 feet. I'm a child.
And we had so many less choices. We had, 3 channels. You had UHF channels. There were a handful of them that were in every market that, you were like, that one's all right. They show Doctor Who or whatever. But for the most part, you were dealing with 3 channels. So Saturday morning, they put cartoons on all 3 channels, and they would run pretty late into the middle of the day. And then you go outside and play and do whatever else you were going to do. But you'd sit there with your bowl of cereal in front of your big giant TV, and you would watch this is the first science fiction cartoon that I could find. I was talking to the guy who runs this show, and he was telling me that it is the first science fiction cartoon, and that was the Star Trek cartoon, 1973. Star Trek had been on the air for 3 years, and apparently the 3rd season is like the weakest of the series, and then the series went off the air. And in 1973, they brought it back with all the original voice actors and animated stories that were very similar to the style of the show. They had originally pitched it as making it kind of more silly. And you'll see some other shows got much sillier versions. So we're going to just take a look at the opening intro for each of these shows. And here's the intro for Star Trek 1973. I think I'm okay. There we go. I think I got to put the sound on for you guys. So he just plugged something in. What was it? Okay, we've already pulled it in. Is anybody a big Star Trek fan? Nobody? None of you guys? What?
My man is.
You are?
Not him.
Oh, no.
He's just a friend.
Okay, all right. Well, we don't need to. I don't want to cause any trouble here. It's all right. No, you guys, you definitely are sitting one seat apart with the bag in the middle. But I don't know. Sometimes that's a good move anyway, even if you are with your man. But he really likes it. So by relationship, like an in-law, you're a Star Trek fan. Yeah, I never got really into it, but I did watch this cartoon when it was on, and yeah, from what I understand, the cartoon really solid, and it brought back a lot of interest in the series. And then this was '73, and a few years later, you get Star Wars coming out, and then Star Trek started making movies, and et cetera, et cetera. All right, so that was 1973. The next one, which came out the same year. This one came out in the fall. This was based on another science fiction TV series from roughly the same time, but a completely different type. This was the version of My Favorite Martian, which was a very silly, very funny show. It was a live action show. It was Ray Walston. What would everybody know him from? I guess if you've seen Fast Times at Ridgemont High, you might know him from that. He was Mr. Hand in that, and then he was also in Rad. If anybody's ever seen, if you guys haven't seen Rad, the greatest BMX bike movie ever. But My Favorite Martian, they spun it off into being an animated series, and this is what Filmation did with it. This is what it looks like. Oh, I got to do this thing again. Hold on.
From outer space crash landed, and two friendly Martians and their dog were stuck on a little planet. Now they got special powers, and it makes some people wonder, but only Tim and Katie really know for sure that they're my favorite Martians. You won't believe the things they do. They're my favorite Martians, and you're gonna know.
And so this is apparently what they were looking to do with the Star Trek animated series, was kind of like this, which is they would add, this show was a funny show to begin with, but the animated version, they would go much further. So anyway, this show was a lot of fun. Didn't last very long. A lot of these shows were very short-lived, and also what I love is they always explained everything in the title song. They were like, here, we're going to tell you what their names are, what they do for a living, how they know each other. Like they tell you that only Tim and what's her name know who the Martians are. They would tell you everything, and that style of song, and even like that intro, if you watched it, we'll see the Jetsons eventually. It's like the same kind of thing. It's like all these shows were very, very similar, even though they weren't put out by the same companies. This one was Filmation. This was on CBS, by the way. 1973, only ran for one season, but that's what they did with most of these shows. Most shows, animated shows, even if they were a big hit, they'd make another one. Like if this was a huge hit, after My Favorite Martians, they'd be like, My Favorite Martians, go to Indiana, and that would be its own show. They'd change it again. Gilligan's Island, which we actually will get to because they had a science fiction Saturday morning cartoon. They had multiple Saturday morning cartoons. Yeah, we'll get to it. We're almost there. All right. The next one, and this absolutely fits into what I'm saying here. Anybody remember the Partridge Family? All right. Well, what about if the Partridge Family was in outer space? This was the Partridge Family 2200 AD, aka the Partridge Family in Outer Space. And this was a series based on the 1970 TV show, and this ran 1974 to 1975, one season, and here it is.
Cities rising in the sky, freeway traffic jetting high. Future's here for us to see. It's 2200 It's the Partridge Family, showing us how it's gonna be. The Partridge Family, light it on.
So we talked about the Jetsons. Now here's the thing. So the reason I didn't mention them is the Jetsons were not a Saturday morning cartoon. They were an evening cartoon. They were prime time. The Flintstones were as well. But they wanted to bring the Jetsons back. The studio was like, it's time to bring back the Jetsons. We brought back the Flintstones as a Saturday morning cartoon. At that time, the Flintstones came back as, I think it was the Pebbles and Bam Bam show. And Pebbles and Bam Bam were teenagers, and you saw their life, and like Fred and Barney were like the background characters, and so they were like, we'll do the same thing with the Jetsons, and we'll bring it back where, Judy's got a job, and, we'll follow that. And then they said, you know what, we're not going to bring back the Jetsons for whatever reason, but we do have the Partridge Family. Why don't we take this entire idea that we have and just make it the Partridge Family? So it looks like they're in the Jetsons world. I mean, it looks like the Jetsons, and that was that. So that's an interesting anomaly.
Okay, so that's why it resembles the Jetsons.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. That was the whole pitch, and that was all the original artwork was all the Jetsons. So, I mean, it's the same cars, it's the same city. It didn't have the same success, but it was a show. It was a thing,
Why
man.
it didn't succeed.
What's that?
I can't imagine why that would.
Yeah, I mean, the Partridge Family, like the appeal of that show was that they were real people. Like it was a live action show, and they were like, the kid was a heartthrob, and the Partridge Family had a different thing going for it. All right, we're gonna talk about the Ghostbusters. This is not Ghostbusters with Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd. This is not that thing. So you probably remember there was an animated Ghostbusters and the real Ghostbusters if you followed animation at that time. And the deal with that, and we'll get to that a little later, was that this show that we're going to take a quick look at, which was not a cartoon but did have some sci-fi element to it, this show was on television first, predated the Ghostbusters with Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd, and so this came on 1975, one of the weirdest shows ever aired, the Ghostbusters, and man, this is a great song. So let me get the mic ready and hear this.
We're the Ghostbusters. I'm Spencer. He's Tracy. I'm Kong. We're the Ghostbusters. We're clever, courageous, and strong. Your sleep has been haunted with whispers and ramblings. Your blood has been curdled. We know what to do. Your skin has the creepies. I wonder what's happening. You're safe in our hands. We will take care of you. We're the Ghostbusters. Spirits and demons beware. The Ghostbusters. Wherever you're hiding out there. We know how you're up to. We're ready for anything. We're bold and we're fearless and never afraid. We're always prepared. We're right there with everyone. With us on the job, trouble soon fade. The Ghostbusters do it again.
Now, I mention this because of the supernatural elements in it. This obviously is not a cartoon, but it did inspire the '86 cartoon. This was Larry Storch and Forrest Tucker. So these two gentlemen in this, they were stars in a TV show called F Troop, which was very much like Gilligan's Island, a very silly show. And so they brought the two of them. They were Spencer and Tracy, which was a play on the actor Spencer Tracy, and Kong as well. Although Tracy was the gorilla, Kong was Forrest Tucker. So it was Spencer, Tracy, and Kong was not the gorilla. The rotating circle, there's a lot going on here. The rotating circle, I'm going to silence my phone, I apologize. The rotating circle that you see at the end with the two names, that's the same guys that did He-Man. And so they, the funny thing about their names are in a circle and they spin around. It's like Prescott and whatever the other guy's name was. And the reason why was because they couldn't agree on whose name would be listed first. So instead, they came up with the compromise of their names being in a circle so that they were each on one side and then they'd rotate. So they'd each get to be on top and then they'd each get to be on bottom. So there you go. That show is just bonkers. I highly recommend it. It's got canned laughter, like fake laughter because they didn't have a live studio audience. Every single episode, they go on a mystery, like a case. They're Ghostbusters, and they go on a case, and the case always involves going to the graveyard set and the castle set, because those were the two sets they had. So they would leave their office, they'd go to the graveyard, the castle. Every episode, new actors would be in the castle doing different things, and they'd never acknowledge, hey, gee, wow, we were here in the last 15 episodes. But that was 1975. It's not the weirdest thing we're going to see today, by the way. I think I got one weirder.
I didn't figure so.
This one, I don't know if you guys have seen this. This is the Planet of the Apes animated series. This was a much more serious and very different type of show. Really interesting looking. Let me show it to you, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. I mean, it's such a different change of tone and pace from the other things. Like, you get done with it's the Ghostbusters, and the next show is this.
Return to the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, they did the Planet of the Apes. So the first film is just wonderful. And then there's several more films. Some of them have their moments. Some are good, some are better than others. There was a TV series. It was kind of, I'm trying to think of what we have beaten to death in this era, the way that they beat Planet of the Apes to death. I can't think of what it would be. I don't know what series. What is the series that they keep rebooting today? Do we have one? I know Scooby-Doo. But man, this one, they just would never let it die. And so there you go. There was that. All right, let's go to the next one. This is the Godzilla animated series. So now we're moving up a little bit. We're at 1978. This series ran on TV until 1981. A lot of fun show. This was Hanna-Barbera together with Toho. And let's take a look.
Up from the depths, 30 stories high, green fire, his hand in the sky. Godzilla, 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 and
that was a very common thing where it was like we've got something a little scary, so we're gonna throw a really silly character. And they're like, just so you know, he's not only is his name Godzuki, but he's gonna fall down the first time you see him in the opening titles. All right, so we now move ahead. We change our TV style. TV started to look like this. It's time, though, for a commercial break. Let's take a look.
Hey, B, no way a little dude like you is gonna change my ways.
It's time you were tempted with the taste of nuts and honey.
Hulk Hogan doesn't eat nuts and honey.
You can take this, an unbeatable part of this nutritious breakfast.
That's better than a body slam.
Undefeated.
And still champion.
It's a honey of the nut. It's honey nut Cheerios.
Sweating into the cereal.
Alan, drink your Ovaltine. It has vitamins and minerals. Oh, do I have to? It's got a new chocolatey taste.
I can't get over Ovaltine. It's so delicious now. It tastes fantastic. Wow, it's a whole new scene. Ovaltine. I can't get over Ovaltine.
I had Ovaltine. It never made you do any of this. Because, you're sitting there on the couch with your bowl of Fruity Pebbles, and you're like, I need Ovaltine. Look at this. This looks crazy.
Ovaltine, the whole new taste you won't get over. Also available in sugar-free.
Yeah, well, why not?
You're Snoopy. You're Snoopy. Snoopy. Looks like someone didn't have a good breakfast like I
Yeah, if you don't have a good breakfast, you're going to die when you play tennis today.
did. A Cheerios breakfast.
When you fuel up with a nutritious breakfast like this one with tasty low-sugar Cheerios, those O's will help keep you on your toes.
Mine, Snoopy. Mine, Snoopy.
You're on your toes.
That was mine, Snoopy.
With Cheerios.
All right, I want you to
West
see this.
Coast
This is a
Furniture.
local commercial.
Breaks the credit barrier. At West Coast Furniture, your credit is okay. We guarantee it.
For the grand opening of our second showroom at 30th and San Pablo, get a free TV with any purchase over $5.99. Buy furniture, appliances, stereo, even a VCR, and get a free TV.
No one is ever turned down for credit at West Coast Furniture. No one.
Call now for instant credit. 800-222. You are okay.
I mean, he's like, can I burst through the wall like the Kool-Aid man at the beginning of the commercial, then look all handsome as I sit in my den and tell you about how you won't get turned down for having bad credit. Those local commercials, you'd see those a lot on Saturday morning because it was cheap airtime, so you'd see a lot of those, and just the acting is just great. All right, so now we're into the 80s. Let's take a look at what we had here. This was 1982. We talked about Gilligan's Island. This was the Sci-Fi Gilligan's Island show. I'm not going to explain it because they will explain it in the song, but you're wondering how could Gilligan's Island become science fiction? Well, here we go.
We've got a brand new story about the castaways.
We left our tiny island after years and months and days.
We built a little spaceship. It's crude, but it could fly.
We left home and lost our way between the stars and sky.
We went from an island to a star, lost on Gilligan's planet.
Gilligan and Skipper, the millionaire, his wife.
The professor, the movie star, and Mary Ann began a brand new life.
What creatures we encounter. What riddles do we face?
What mysteries now haunt us in a strange, enchanting place.
Our adventures are the best by far.
Here on Gilligan's Dark Planet.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. And you could tell they were like, can we call it Gilligan's Star? Because they were like, it rhymes. So this show, this was the second Gilligan's Island animated series. So this is what I was telling you guys before. All these shows were one season because the idea was if you get one season, you can rerun that forever. I mean, you can rerun it as many times as you want. And if it's a hit, you don't make more episodes of that. You make another show. So what they did was the first one was it was called like the New Adventures of Gilligan. And that was, you know, more, it was all on the island, although he did have like a alien or a monkey or something that traveled with him. And it was a little goofier, but it was the same voice actors. And then they said, well, we need to do something new. So we're going to have them, rather than build a boat, professor's building a rocket out of coconuts. And we're going to just go up into outer space and they're going to land on a planet that humans can inhabit, which is just a great idea. And so Gilligan and the Skipper and all of them would have these adventures. In both of these animated series, they had the entire original cast except for Ginger. She didn't want anything to do with it at the time. She's the only living cast member of Gilligan's Island. She said that for years she resented the show because she couldn't get back then, when you did a show like this, you had trouble getting other work because everybody's like, oh, I know you from Gilligan's Island. But unlike years later, they didn't get paid when these things were rerun for another 30 years. You know, they got paid the first time and then maybe the first rerun of the episode. And then that was it. You know, their performance, they had already been reimbursed for it. And there wasn't the same convention business or anything else. So a lot of these guys, they had a lot of trouble making ends meet all the time. And it was one of those things where, what are you going to do? You're the skipper from Gilligan's Island. You know, he opened a restaurant. You know, because you're not going to go work at the auto body shop, or you're not going to get a desk job if you're the skipper. And if you can't get acting work, it's kind of tough. So that's what she said. made her resent the show. And then she said when she got a little older, she met some people, including one particular man who really liked the show and it meant a lot to him. And she realized that she was making an impact on all these people's lives by doing that show, and that even though it wasn't something that was that important to her, it was important to other people. So she tends to say she has a much more positive feeling about it. But anyway, she refused to do these. The rest of the cast did. They're a lot of fun. You should pull them up. All right, This is 1983. We're going to see the weirdest one we're going to see. Okay, so this is the strangest one. This is, anybody familiar with Sid and Marty Krofft? Sid and Marty Krofft did H.R. Puffin stuff, and they did the Bugaloos, and what was the other one with the Sea Monster, Sigmund the Sea Monster. They did all these really crazy shows with these really crazy characters. This is not a Sid and Marty Krofft production, but man, it is trying as hard as it can to be one. This was on CBS. Warner produced this with Hanna-Barbera, but it is a live action show, so from an animation studio. Benji was a very famous dog. They had made this movie called Benji. It was a huge, colossal hit in the 70s. They made a sequel and then some more sequels, and Benji hung around for a long time. The first film is a relatively serious family film. It's not, it's not a lot of silliness. It's not really a kid's film. It's a family film, and it's great. I mean, I really highly recommend if you're looking to look at some old stuff. That's great. This is not, although I also recommend you watch this show. We're going to see a clip from Benji, Zax, and the Alien Prince. So again, you take the original premise, which is this dog who Benji didn't talk or anything like that. He was a dog, and then you give him an alien and a robot, and you got a show. All right, let's take a look. There's Benji, there's a robot, and this kid's an alien. Times these shows would have really long intros so that they had to make less show every week, so they'd squeeze a minute and a half out of the opening. This one might be the longest intro of any show though I've ever seen.
At last, Your Highness, planet Earth.
What? Yeah, it's still the intro. We're still...
This world is mine now. All my enemies are
in prison. Just summing up everything you need to know.
Yumi, who has escaped to a primitive planet called Earth. Go there and get him!
Dog, a four-legged mammal indigenous only to this planet, used for chasing balls, fetching newspapers, and that.
Benji, Zax, and the Alien Prince. The first pilot, which did not run, they actually had the Alien Prince was a grown man, and then they were like, well, what if he's a kid? And so he's a kid, and it's a fish out of water thing. He doesn't know what's going on. You got that robot that looks like Wall-E, who could fly, or BB-8, or sort of looks a little like E.T. as well. And the robot was witty and funny, and then Benji was able to do things. The thing about the first Benji movie was Joe Camp, the director and creator of the Benji series, he wanted a dog that could do all kinds of stuff. And so he approached Frank Inn, who was like a renowned animal trainer, and he said, I want him to be able to do this, do that, I want him to go over here. And he went through all the stuff that was in the script that the dog had to do. And it was all very complicated, following, very specific directions. And the guy said, well, there's only one dog I've ever worked with that could do this. He's retired. He's mostly deaf. The dog's name was Higgins, and it was the dog from Petticoat Junction. And he said, out of all the dogs I've ever worked with, that dog will do anything I tell it to do. So the first day of filming, they get the dog on the set, and there's this pretty complicated scene. It's the very first scene in the first Benji movie where the dog has to climb across the roof and then he goes down this and across this, and it had to all work because it's all one shot, or mostly, I think it's like 3 shots, but it's a long, montage that has very few cuts. And so Joe gets there and Frank gets there with the dog, and Frank just screams at the dog the whole time. He's like, "Go here, up, over!" And he's like, man, he just yells at this dog. Every time the dog gets done, he gives the dog a piece of steak, pets the dog. And so he's like, I don't know if he's mad at the dog or what. And so he says to Frank, he's like, do you have to yell at him like that? He's like, oh, the dog is almost completely deaf. I have to yell as loud as I can for this dog to hear me, but the dog will do whatever I tell you. So Higgins, the first Benji, passed away, and they replaced Benji after that. So this Benji in this was the daughter of the first Benji. This was Benjean, but playing the part of Benji. And we've had most recently, I think it was like 2015, there was a Benji that was on original for Netflix, which isn't bad. It's pretty good. It's like it's not really a remake. It's like they took the concept of the first movie and they rewrote it. So, all right, let's move on. We should. Everybody should move on from that. Speaking of robots, 1985, we had one of the 2 Star Wars movie shows. So this takes place between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. So this storyline is canon to the Star Wars universe. And here it is. This is the adventures of R2-D2 and C-3PO. This song is so wrong for this.
It's just this brain designed by man got me trouble again.
This is like if you ordered the police, like Sting and the Police on Wish. You get this song. And R2-D2 as himself.
In the surface of my brain, I wouldn't care, but it's a dangerous affair. 'Cause I'm in trouble again. Trouble again.
And you can see that this, unlike the Star Trek show that we looked at earlier, this was a little sillier. It was a little sillier than the movies are. Here's the other one. Oh boy. This is the other one. This is 1985. You'll know it.
We are the Trinity spirits from the forest grove. We're Trinity spirits from the forest grove.
I bought a bootleg copy of these cartoons from Kevin Smith, by the way, when he had his store in New Jersey originally. He used to sell bootleg tapes. I think at some point he was like, maybe as a filmmaker I shouldn't be doing that. But anyway, I bought this and I brought it home and I turned it on and I was like, this can't be the real song. This can't be the song. We're the Ewoks. Here, listen.
We are free, we are bold, like a storyteller told. They were strong and we will fight, and we'll stand up for our rights. We're the spirits from the forest grove. We are the spirits from the forest grove. Yes, we're all on the barrel, and on highways in the tree. When we want to find high, we just sail out on the creek. We are the
That's enough Ewoks. So this series, I talked about how they would only last for a season. This one did last for 2 seasons, but they changed the title. So the first season was called the Ewoks. The next one was the all-new Ewoks, because they wanted to make sure if kids were tuning in, they were like, I don't want this to be the thing I've already seen. So, all right, let's move ahead. I'm going to show you just a little bit of this. We talked about Ghostbusters earlier. This was the animation version of it, and this came out when the Ghostbusters movie was a hit. They were like, hey, we own that name, why don't we use it as well? So you can see this. So what's that?
I was confused.
confused as a kid watching this. I expected.
Yeah, you were like, "What? Where are the guys I know?" Yeah, so that was in the mid '80s, right around the same time we got the real Ghostbusters. This one premiered September of 1986. So this is the one with the people we all recognize. Although for some reason the logo came to life as part of the show. Slimer's like hanging out with them all the time.
Something strange in the neighborhood. Who you gonna call? There's something weird and it don't look good.
I always thought that part of the song where he's like, there's something weird and it don't look good, call the Ghostbusters. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff doesn't look good. I mean, I can look out, I'm telling you, I've been down this street, there's a lot of weird things going on. A lot of it doesn't look good. I don't call the Ghostbusters. I don't think it's ghosts. I know it's people. All right, let's go. Let's move forward because we're running out of time, unfortunately. I have so much I want to show you guys. All right, here is the Teen Wolf cartoon from 1986.
Oh no!
Oh no, Michael J. Fox.
It's a hairy situation. I'll die if anyone sees me like this. Hey man, say, don't be shy.
Look
if
at
it
that.
happens to you. Yeah, Grandpa. Good morning, Scotty. It's fun being different if you have a healthy attitude.
Only my friends with styles know my hairy secret.
I'm feeling hairy, and my teeth are
Teen Wolf, man, this thing has lasted. This thing has been. There've been a lot of. I mean, like even the second Teen Wolf, we already were on to a new Teen Wolf. They went from Michael J. Fox, who was on Family Ties, to Jason Bateman, who was on. What was he on? Like what was this show called? It's like Valerie's Family or something, but he was on some other show on TV, and they were like, let's get another young hip actor, and they brought it back relatively recently. I think that thing was a big hit. All right, I'm sorry to see a friend of mine was in the room, and I know he would have liked this one, but he's not here for it. Alf, the animated series.
Gordon, send us into outer space. 'Cause there ain't no one like you in the Melmacian race. Teach us, send us, Gordon, make us twitch. You're the only one that can scratch our ears. So Gordon, go.
These cats are rather bold, getting real close with Alf. Yeah. Alf eats cats. Yeah, this was a puppet live action series that they then turned into an animation series. They also had another one called Alf Tales, which was like Jack and the Beanstalk, things like that. They really leaned into telling you that his name was Gordon, and that's only mentioned like on the live action show where he's a puppet. They always call him Alf. Like he has a name. His name's Gordon Shumway. I mean, just think about this. Like if you somehow went to another planet and a family took you in and they just kept calling you Alf for alien life force rather than calling you by the actual name that your mom gave you, Gordon Shumway. But yeah, but back on Melmac, everybody called him Gordon. They wouldn't call him Alf because he wasn't an Alf. He was on his right planet. All right, RoboCop had an animated series. I don't know why, an R-rated
Detroit, the near future.
Gritty
Officer Alex
science
Murphy
fiction
and his
show
partner
needed to
Ann
be
Lewis
animated.
fight to rid the decaying city of the criminal element which infests it. After being mortally wounded in the line of duty, Officer Murphy is outfitted by OCP with bulletproof titanium robotic parts and with computer-enhanced motor and sensory capabilities. He has become the ultimate super cop.
RoboCop. Man, 1988 was a good year. The following year, we got Beetlejuice. Check this out. This was great. The Beetlejuice animated cartoon was awesome. All right, let's move into the 1990s. Let's see a couple commercials. I like the commercial break. Let's do a little commercial break and then we'll move into the 90s.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Sorry, you can't go in yet.
What does Kellogg's Rice Krispies Treat cereal have that other cereals don't? The taste of Rice Krispies Treat squares. In a big way. Little crispy clusters, big treats taste. In fact, when you eat Kellogg's
Rice Krispie treats will kill your enemies.
Rice Krispies Treat cereal as part of your complete breakfast, you'll think you're eating Rice Krispies Treats.
What's that?
It seems it'll kill your enemies, your allies, anyone in the room.
The teachers, yeah, everybody. All right, let's see what's next. We got, oh man, the Men in Black series. This was a thing. I like that. That's pretty cool. Well, I hope you enjoyed hearing about these. They were a lot of fun. I do have the next panel, so I'm not stopping. We're to the end of that. Does anybody have any memories of Saturday morning cartoons? Any of these that I didn't cover? Did I miss anything? Which one? Johnny Quest. Yeah. Now was that on Saturday morning?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know if that was. It might have been
the Godzilla animated series.
We did the 90s version. Oh, so the one with the Toby Emmerich Godzilla. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
I actually have that DVD. It was the same animation style as that Men in Black.
Yeah, it looked pretty cool. There was also, I think the same studio did an Evolution, the movie. They did an Evolution animated series.
Kid, so.
Yeah, that's a good one though. Yes.
90s, that's my bread and butter right there.
Yeah, we talked about the old Godzilla, but yeah, that Godzilla, that's the one that's now called Zilla. It's an interesting movie, but they did two things when they were promoting it. They were real big on not letting anybody see what Godzilla looked like until the movie came out, which I don't know why you would do that. I mean, he's the selling point. So the commercials and everything.
I think when we saw him, we found out why.
Yeah, I know, that's the thing. They also changed like the way that he looked, and it was one of those, you see this sometimes when you hear about a reboot and they have an interview or whatever with the director and they're like, oh, the old version was just so silly, and you're like, no, everybody loves the old version. You want to pay homage to it, not, and so I do think that they were like, we used to like Godzilla when we were kids, and now we think it's stupid, so we want to make a good version of it. But it was also like the ad campaign, they'd be like, his foot is the size of this bus, it would say on the side of a bus, and it's just kind of weird. It's like, all right, yeah, he's big.
Reference it in a couple of the Japanese movies where two military guys were like, oh, I heard Godzilla was sighted in New York, and they're like, oh no, that's something. They thought it was Godzilla.
Yes, that was in was that Final Wars, Godzilla Final Wars?
Versus
no.
Godzilla, I think.
Okay, yeah. And then Final Wars, Godzilla fights him, and he fights him in Sydney, Australia. So it's Godzilla versus Zilla, and Godzilla beats him immediately.
Makes the reference. I knew that too in my head.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's a great movie. That's a fun time, man. No, don't apologize for bringing up Godzilla. There's nothing I want to talk about more. So again, everybody, when you get home, you got to buy every copy of Benji, Zax, and the Alien Prince.